Usually I'm very rooted in reality here on Locked On Baylor. That's something I'm big into, reality, and not just the movie with Sydney Sweeney. I don't love going into hypothetical scenarios, but today I'm going to break that mold a little bit because this one fascinates me. Fascinates me. I'm going to do the Rod Serling Twilight Zone. What if I told you that Dave Aranda was the Alabama Crimson Tide head coach? Was that a good Rod Serling? I don't know. But it's weird to think of now, right? Alabama's the number one job in college football. At the worst, the second best job in college football for if there are any bitter Ohio State fans listening. Like it is the top of the top, especially from what Nick Saban built. 9 SEC championships, 6 national championships in 15 years. He calls it quits, stuns everybody back in January, right after the college football playoff semifinal, when he says, I'm done, I'm out of college football. And initially he had said that it was because of the NIL and this ever-changing world. And I get that, it's not going away. And that's part of the game now. But as someone who's almost 70 years old and has accomplished everything you can accomplish in college football, like that makes sense that he just wants to coach ball and not do any of that other stuff. And then we find out in an interview yesterday that he also didn't like the way his players reacted after a loss, like throwing down their helmets. Apparently that's a new thing in Alabama. I've seen that for a while, but that was the last straw for Nick Saban. And also in that interview, which is why I'm talking about it, is he had said that he came into his AD's office, Greg Byrne, after the 2022 season and said, "Hey, I might be done. Like I'm like not right now, but like I'm coming to an end here." And so Byrne already knew, like, maybe I need to start looking at head coaches. And there are also rumors circulating that Saban said something similar after 2021, which makes it very interesting. So then I play in the hypotheticals in my head of what if he did say it in 2021 or 2022? Who else would Alabama be looking at? Because Kalen DeBoer, the guy they got right now, would not have been on their radar, right? And so I think back to the 2021 season, and there were 2 really hot coaches, like young coaches who were just getting their first crack at a head coaching job, that were getting interest. And one of them was getting major interest. And that guy was Dave Aranda. Remember, it wasn't that long ago. Like we were kind of clutching pearls over here of whether he was going to go to LSU, which became available. That was the place he came from as the defensive coordinator. Notre Dame was open. Washington, who eventually hired DeBoer, liked Aranda a lot. Who else was open? Cincinnati, was that one open? I don't know, but there were a bunch of big head coaching jobs that year. Florida was open. Nebraska got open the next year. That were Oregon was the other one I was thinking of that were looking at Dave Aranda. There were quite a few that were trying to interview him and get him in the door. And so if Nick Saban retires at the end of 2021 with all these other coaching openings, I'm wondering where on the power rankings is Dave Aranda? Because it's right at the top. If you're making a short list after the 2021 season, almost everyone would have Dave Aranda at the top of that list. He's young. He just took a team from 2-7 to the number 5 ranking in the country at the end of the season, a Big 12 championship, a Sugar Bowl championship, and was one play here or there away from the playoff. It was this remarkable, revelation renaissance of this program that was not even ranked to start the season to have all of these accolades at the end of it. Of course, everyone was in on Dave Aranda. And Alabama would have been no different. Now, the folly of this argument is the other guy who was really hot at the time was Michigan State head coach Mel Tucker, who did coach under Saban at Alabama. So that probably would have been the number one guy on their list. But honestly, Aranda could not have been much farther than the number 2 guy on their list. And that is interesting to me because I think about their head coaching search now, and Kalen DeBoer was not number 1 on their list. No way. Kalen DeBoer is a good coach from what we can see, but the jury is still out a little bit. He's won everywhere he's been. So I don't want to say like he doesn't have a resume. And he took Washington to the national championship game, but that was year 2. And like Alabama is a whole different animal. The SEC is a whole different animal. And so we don't know if he's a great coach, but we know he's probably a good one. I can almost guarantee you, like Lane Kiffin and Steve Sarkisian were definitely higher than Kalen DeBoer on that list. Like proven Power 5 head coaches who are doing great jobs right now and had coached under Saban in that kind of offensive coordinator rehab that Saban had going there for years at Alabama. Definitely those two guys were ahead of Kalen DeBoer in the pecking order for sure. And they both got extensions. Sark got a huge one. So like, no doubt those were the guys they were looking at. So I say that to say Aranda might've been second on that list, but they had to dip into probably their 4th or 5th guy this time around with the same prestige, right? 2 years later. So after 2021, they absolutely could have poached Dave Aranda 1,000%. And it's just wild to look back on now with what has happened since then, with Aranda kind of on life support with this program, that he could be, getting he could be doing junior days for the Alabama Crimson Tide right now, which is just incredible to me. But it's really not that far-fetched when you see that Saban looked to possibly retire after 21 and then definitely thought about it after 22, which let's play the 2022 game. Baylor has a disappointing season at 6-7, but if you're looking at it with not as great a coaching carousel going into last season, you're thinking, well, he did go 6-7, sure, but that's what Baylor is, blah, blah, blah. And he's 1 year removed from this. We know what he's capable of. They just had a bad year. Their quarterback got hurt at some point in the season and missed half a game. They're justifying it, right? But you look at who were the head coaching options going into the 23 season. So after that 2022, 6-7 for Baylor. And it was not like great pickings for guys who were out there. GJ Kinney was out there, but it was like Deion, Coach Prime. Alabama ain't making that big a jump. They're not taking that big a risk with Deion Sanders, right? So that's probably not it. Luke Fickell, maybe he's a Midwestern guy, but sure. And the number 1 guy who was on there was Matt Rule. And would Alabama have gone after Matt Rule? Maybe. That wouldn't have been a bad hire. I really rate Matt Rule as a really good college football coach. So if you include Aranda in that pack, he's no worse than 3rd. Like, he was a better, more secure option than Deion Sanders. And if you want to argue he isn't anymore, I'll hear that out. But he certainly was. And so we were really not that far off. According to this interview that Saban did with ESPN, we were not that far off from a Dave Aranda, Alabama Crimson Tide marriage. And they do wear crimson, which I made the mistake on last time, which was silly by me. But like, at least he would have done interviews there. Oregon and LSU, those are absolutely powerhouses, and it was wild that Aranda didn't entertain those more. But Alabama's Alabama. There's 2 or 3 college football programs in today's day and age that just stick out above the rest. I'll give it 4. Alabama, Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State in their current status. I know Notre Dame is up there too. The Clemson people will be arguing they're up there too. Most years, yes, but those 4 are ones that you would leave anywhere for, especially Alabama and Ohio State. You would leave anywhere for those. And so we were not that far away from seeing Dave Aranda, our daddy Dave, coaching at Alabama.